Am I the antagonist? A woman demanded info on my condition, so I asked her extremely personal questions. Yesterday, I, 49 female, attended a state fair where a woman approached me and insisted on knowing details about my medical condition. In short, I am paralyzed from roughly the area below my bra band and rely on a power wheelchair and a service dog. Generally, I don't mind educating people about paralysis, access difficulties, and talking about my dog. However, this woman, my friends, was incredibly rude, pushy, and demanding. She acted as if she had a right to my personal medical history. Without even politely asking, she demanded to know how it happened, the outcomes, whether I tried certain treatments, and so on. She even had the audacity to inquire about my sex life. Can you believe it? Who asks a complete stranger, unfortunate enough to be enjoying some delectable fair food at the table area, such personal questions? I was dumbfounded and my delicious deep-fried BBQ got cold as I stared at her in disbelief. So, I put on the most polite smile I could manage, but this is where I might have crossed a line. I started asking her about her most recent gynecologist visit. Did she find the stirrups too high? Did she have to do that awkward shimmy scoot down the table? Was the speculum cold? Did the PAP smear hurt? Just the usual questions. If she felt entitled to my answers, I figured I should be entitled to hers, right? Well, she completely lost it. She began screaming and yelling about how gross and perverted I was, and so on and so forth. Her friends tried to calm her down, and one of them criticized me for not being polite and just answering her questions. As far as I could tell, there was nothing impairing this woman. She didn't have a caregiver or someone taking care of her. She was with a group of friends and seemed perfectly fine until she noticed me. I approached the table, asked if there was any available space, and set up at the end of the table where I could fit my wheelchair neatly. I explained to the group that if she wanted my personal and private medical information, then she should be willing to trade information. Two people called me an asshole as they left while trying to calm down their almost hysterical friend. She was still shouting and screaming, calling me a pervert, cruel and mean. People stared at me and I hated the attention. In that moment, I felt empowered for finally finding the courage to stand up for myself, figuratively speaking. However, when I discussed it with my friends later that night, they said I was in the wrong and could have politely declined to answer her questions. I tried that initially when she approached me with demands, rather than asking nicely. So I am turning to you for your judgment. Am I the asshole for refusing to disclose my medical information and turning the tables by asking her about her own? You are not the asshole in this situation. It is completely inappropriate for someone to demand personal medical information from a stranger, especially in such a rude and demanding manner. You had every right to stand up for yourself and refuse to divulge your medical information. Your response to ask her about her personal medical experiences was a clever way to make your point about the invasion of privacy. However, it is understandable that her reaction to your question may have been extreme. Nevertheless, it does not change the fact that she was the one who initiated the inappropriate line of questioning. You are entitled to your privacy, and you maintained a level of restraint by not resorting to any personal attacks or insults. It is unfortunate that people around you may not have understood the severity of the situation and labeled you as the asshole. Am I the antagonist for confronting my roommate in front of her parents? Me, female 20, and my roommate, female 21, have been having a lot of issues since we moved in together earlier this year. However, things reached a breaking point a few days ago when we had a huge fight. The reason I don't like her is because she's constantly eating my food and using my makeup. Unfortunately, she even ruined one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes that I can't replace because it's been discontinued. On the other hand, she dislikes me because she thinks I'm interested in her boyfriend, even though I'm gay. Our fight occurred last Friday. I was planning to go to a party at a friend's house, so I was wearing an outfit that showed more skin than usual. That's when I discovered my ruined palette, and I confronted her immediately, full of anger. She once again accused me of trying to get with her boyfriend, claiming that I was embarrassing her in front of him because of my outfit. She made this accusation right in front of him. I've already reminded her countless times that although I dress femininely, I'm a lesbian. I went to the party, got really drunk, came back home and crashed. The next morning, I went to the bathroom to wash my face and brush my teeth. As I looked in the mirror, I noticed that my eyelashes had been cut short. I was furious and stormed into the living room, where my roommate was. Initially, I didn't even notice that her parents were there too. It turned out that they had stopped by for a visit on their way to a wedding. As soon as her mom found out what happened, she became furious and started yelling at my roommate as well. Believe it or not, my roommate had done this before during a fight with her younger sister in high school. It's not the first time she has done something like this. Her parents decided to cut her monthly allowance and restrict her spending to groceries and school-related expenses only. She won't be able to eat out or do anything fun until my eyelashes grow back. Once her parents left, my roommate started yelling at me for getting her in trouble with them. I simply told her she was crazy and went to my room. I stayed at a friend's place that night, and the next day I purchased and installed a deadbolt on my bedroom door. I spoke to my other roommates, and while they agree that what my roommate did was insane, they think I could have confronted her when her parents weren't around. They also claim that I did it again by confronting her in front of her boyfriend. Additionally, they suggest that I could use false eyelashes until my natural ones grow back, considering I wear makeup every day anyway. I feel like they are disregarding the seriousness of her actions. She snuck into my room in the middle of the night with scissors. What if I had moved in my sleep and she accidentally cut my eyelid, or worse, my eye? The thought of her entering my room while I'm asleep with a sharp object terrifies me. Now I try to spend most of my time away from home or in my room with the deadbolt secured. Even a week later, I still don't feel safe in my own home. Your roommate's behavior is completely unacceptable, and it's understandable that you would not feel safe after what she did. It's not your fault that her parents were there when you confronted her, and it's not your responsibility to protect her from the consequences of her actions. Cutting off someone's eyelashes while they sleep is a violation of personal boundaries and can be considered a form of assault. Your other roommates may not be taking the situation seriously enough, as they are dismissing the severity of her actions. Installing a deadbolt on your bedroom door is a reasonable measure to ensure your safety and privacy. You have the right to create boundaries and protect yourself in your own home. If possible, consider communicating with your landlord or finding another living situation that will provide a safer environment for you. Am I the antagonist for helping one postpartum relative more than the other? My husband and I are in our late 20s and have a 2-year-old child. I am a stay-at-home mom. The sisters-in-law mentioned in this story are the wives of my husband's brothers. All of us are in our early to mid-30s. So, my CLs Anna and Brenda were both pregnant at the same time earlier this year, with Anna due first. We live close to Anna and her husband, about a 15-minute walk away. Brenda and her husband live in a different area of the same city. About 6 months ago, Brenda and her husband were looking for a new place to rent in a better neighborhood as their lease was ending. There were a few houses for rent in our neighborhood within their budget. I sent Brenda links to them and suggested that living close to us might be nice because I could help out a lot during her postpartum period. However, they chose a house that is about a 20-minute drive away from us, citing its character even though it was farther from their jobs. I understand that not everyone wants to live close to family, so it wasn't a big deal. Anna had her baby almost 2 months ago. Since they live just a 15-minute walk away and near a park I take my toddler to, I often drop off something for them. For example, instead of making a large lasagna, I make 2 smaller dishes and leave one on their porch on my way to the park. On some morning walks, I drop off a loaf of pumpkin bread. If my child is behaving well and they are up for visitors, I'll go inside and watch the baby for an hour so they can take a nap. Sometimes Anna and her baby join us on our walk. I provide this support because it's what I wished I had during my own postpartum days. Brenda had her baby about 3 weeks ago. I've driven over to their place 3 times already, each time bringing food and doing their dishes. However, 2 nights ago, my husband's brother messaged him to express how hurt Brenda was that I am not giving her as much support as I'm giving Anna. He mentioned that they feel isolated without friends or family in their new neighborhood, and that they are exhausted, have no energy to cook, and no one to watch the baby so they can nap. They also mentioned how Anna posts on her Instagram stories about the gourmet meals I drop off for her daily, although they aren't actually gourmet, which makes Brenda feel unfairly treated. My husband pointed out that I encouraged them to move close to us so I could help, but his brother argued that their new place is only 5 minutes further in terms of travel time, 15-minute walk versus 20-minute drive. I believe there is a significant difference. For what it's worth, I had neutral feelings towards both CLs before this situation, and neither of them helped me after I gave birth. I only received congrats texts. It was during the pandemic, but still, no one brought us food or offered support. So it's not like I had a close relationship with either of them before this. Am I the asshole for not being as available to help my other sister-in-law as often as I help Anna? You are not obligated to provide the same level of support to both Sills. You offered to help Brenda by suggesting houses in your neighborhood, but she chose to live further away. It is unfair for her to expect the same level of support as Anna, who lives just a short walk away. It is also important to note that you are already going out of your way to provide support to Brenda by driving over to her house multiple times and bringing food. It is not your responsibility to provide constant assistance, especially considering that neither sister-in-law helped you after you gave birth. It is understandable that Brenda may feel isolated in her new neighborhood, but that does not mean you have to shoulder all the burden. It might be worthwhile to have an open and honest conversation with Brenda and her husband to discuss expectations and boundaries. Ultimately, it is important to prioritize your own well-being and the needs of your immediate family. Am I the antagonist for joining my parents in ganging up on my brother to question his parenting decisions? My brother has a 10-year-old son. He is no longer with the mother of his son, and for the last 4 years, he has been married to his wife, Kat. My brother and Kat started dating shortly after my nephew began school. Initially, my nephew seemed to get along well with Kat and was happy about her presence. However, after a few months, during their engagement, I noticed that he became more withdrawn and less enthusiastic about Kat, his dad, and the upcoming wedding. My parents also noticed this change and asked him if everything was okay, but he shrugged it off. They brought it up to my brother, who said that things were normal at home and nothing had changed. He believed it was likely something else and that my nephew would talk when he was ready. 4 years have passed and things still feel off. There has always been something, but we were never sure what it was. My nephew never said anything either. Then a couple of weeks ago, My brother mentioned that my nephew was grounded indefinitely at his house, and his ex was refusing to support the punishment. We asked what happened, and he said that my nephew had not been acknowledging Kat's presence at school at all. What triggered my brother was an assignment where my nephew had to write about his family. He talked about having 2 homes, one with his mom, maternal grandparents, uncle, aunt, and cousins, and the other with his dad. Kat's presence was not mentioned. When my brother and Kat went to the school, the teacher expressed surprise that Kat was not included in the description, as my nephew had never mentioned her. Additionally, some old artwork from a year or 2 ago was brought up, in which my nephew drew himself having 2 homes but did not include Kat. However, he did draw all the people in the home he shared with his mom. My brother confronted my nephew, telling him that he should have included Kat in all family-related writings and drawings. He believed it was mean of my nephew to act like she didn't exist. My nephew didn't want to write or draw about Kat, and that was all he said. As a result, my brother decided to punish him indefinitely, taking away his TV, video games, and the privilege of spending time with friends and attending parties. My parents and I were shocked by my brother's strict approach. My mother had a private conversation with my nephew, who explained that he felt pressured to think of Kat as his other mom and acknowledge having 3 parents, which he disliked. He thought that by not mentioning her, he would be in less trouble. My parents and I decided to talk to my brother and express how we felt he was wrong in his decision. When we confronted him, he accused us of ganging up on him like bullies and disrespecting his parenting. Am I the a-hole? Firstly, it is concerning that the nephew started to exhibit withdrawal and lack of enthusiasm towards his dad and stepmom. This could have been a sign of discomfort or unhappiness that was not addressed by the adults involved. Instead of investigating the issue and trying to understand why the nephew felt this way, the brother dismissed it as something unrelated. Secondly, when the nephew did express his feelings by not including the stepmom in his family-related assignments, the brother's reaction was unreasonable. Punishing the child by taking away privileges indefinitely is extreme, especially without trying to have a conversation and understand the child's perspective. It is important to create an open and safe environment for children to express their emotions and concerns. Lastly, the way the brother confronted the nephew and demanded him to acknowledge the stepmom seems unfair. It is not appropriate to force a child to think of someone as their other mom if they don't feel that way. Children should be allowed their own feelings and preferences when it comes to their relationships. In conclusion, the brother's reaction and handling of the situation seemed harsh and dismissive of the nephew's feelings. It is important to listen to children and respect their emotions, even if they don't align with our own expectations. Am I the antagonist for not forcing my daughter, 15F, to go to her dad's despite custody agreement? I am a 34-year-old woman with a custody agreement involving my 15-year-old daughter, Liz, and her father, Tim, who is 35. Initially, we didn't really follow the agreement. When Liz was 5, Tim, who had been absent from her life for almost a year, suddenly wanted full custody. However, the court only granted him 40% custody. Liz goes to her father's place every weekend, but as she grew older, we became more flexible with the arrangement. Tim, his then-girlfriend and now wife, Casey, 35, my husband, 32, and I formed a good co-parenting relationship. Whenever they had busy schedules, their 12-year-old daughter would stay with me, and I would take her to school. I spent so much time with her that she became like a part of my family. When Tim and Casey broke up for a year, they relied on us even more. Tim, who has a government job, had to leave town occasionally, so I even helped him fly home for 24 hours during the holidays to be with Liz as a Christmas gift. Once they got back together, Tim suddenly decided to move to the countryside, an hour away from our city, because he believed it was safer, even though there are drug-related problems there. I warned him that it might not be a smart move because Liz was getting older and would want a social life. I also mentioned that he would miss important events like soccer games. However, a couple of years later, he has indeed missed many games and weekends. He even went no contact for about a month and blamed Liz for not responding to his texts, which she showed me. Liz recently had a very stressful month due to her heavy involvement in high school clubs, soccer, and socializing. Sometimes she feels manipulated by Casey and Tim, which upsets her. She believes she is a bad daughter for pursuing things she would have been able to do if they had stayed in town. This month, she had 2 performances with 2 different clubs, soccer games, and practices. She had initially wanted to quit soccer this year, but Tim pressured her to continue. As an alternative, she chose dance, which he claimed didn't count as a sport, so she stuck with soccer. Liz is an excellent dancer, and performing comes naturally to her. However, because Tim chose to selfishly move an hour away, he did not attend any of her performances. Getting him to even attend her games has been difficult. Over the past few years, he has become inconsistent as a father, and I'm tired of making excuses for him. Therefore, I have advised Liz not to feel guilty for being a normal kid, and I believe Tim's hurt feelings are his own problem since he chose to move away. Additionally, he refuses to drive to town late, causing her to miss football games. He expects her to get her driver's license in the next few years and drive to see him, even though she's only 15.5 years old. Liz feels like she can't get a job because she has to spend weekends with her dad. Previously, I used to tell Liz that she had to go with her dad because of the court order, but now I refuse to deny her the chance to be a normal kid just because her dad has custody. Therefore, am I the one in the wrong here? You have been supportive of your daughter and have tried to co-parent with her father in a flexible and understanding manner. However, it appears that her father has been inconsistent and not fully present in her life due to his decision to move away. Your concerns about him missing important events in your daughter's life are valid, and it is understandable that you want her to be able to participate in activities and have a social life without feeling guilty. Ultimately, you are prioritizing your daughter's well-being and happiness, which is commendable. Am I the antagonist for not letting my mother-in-law and Fael help me with the baby after their reaction to me being injured? I, a 21-year-old female, have a 7-month-old son with my boyfriend. My family lives abroad and will be visiting during Christmas to stay and help. Currently, my mother-in-law, and father-in-law, FIL, both in their 60s and named Deborah and Bob, are assisting me with household chores and taking care of the baby. So far, we haven't encountered any major issues, and their help has been incredibly valuable. About 3 weeks ago, I accidentally fell down the stairs. Thankfully, I was not holding the baby, so he was safe. However, instead of coming to help me, both Deborah and Bob immediately rushed to comfort the crying baby. I was left at the bottom of the stairs, feeling shocked and wobbly. Although my legs were fine, I asked one of them for assistance in getting up. Unfortunately, they ignored me for almost 10 minutes. Eventually, I managed to stand up on my own and made my way to the living room. As I sat down, Deborah asked me what had happened and if I was okay. I must admit, I was furious. I simply responded, I fell down the stairs. Didn't you hear me calling for help? Deborah's eyes widened, and she claimed to have been too preoccupied with the baby. After an hour, my arm started to swell and I was taken to the hospital. Fortunately, it was nothing serious, and my recovery time would be minimal. Once my boyfriend returned home and his parents left, I expressed to him that I no longer wanted their help after what had transpired earlier that day. I reassured him that I could manage on my own, even though it would be challenging. He was surprised by my decision and pointed out how much his parents had done for us. I acknowledged their assistance but emphasized that they had ignored my cries and didn't seem to care about me, only the baby. I felt embarrassed for not realizing it sooner. My boyfriend called his parents to inform them that we no longer needed their help. In response, his dad asked if it was related to that day. My boyfriend simply invited them for Sunday roast this week and left it at that. I could tell that he wasn't thrilled with my decision, but he agreed with it because I am the mother. Fast forward to Sunday, and my brother-in-law, and sister-in-law are also present. Sister-in-law, who has a 3-year-old, is completely supportive of me, but brother-in-law is not. He told me to be grateful for his parents' support, as they are financially better off than my own parents and have covered various expenses related to our newborn and will continue to do so as the baby grows. Since then, Deborah has been calling frequently, expressing her remorse for not seeing both of us and stating that she misses the baby. She keeps offering to help. Am I the asshole for not wanting their assistance in my day-to-day life? It is understandable that you no longer want your in-laws' help after they ignored your calls for help following your fall down the stairs. It is concerning that they prioritized comforting the baby over assisting you when you were clearly injured. Your concerns and feelings are valid, and it is your decision whether or not you want their help in your day-to-day life. Your brother-in-law. His comments about being grateful for their financial support do not justify their behavior in this situation. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.